Deep in Namibia's desert mountains lies ancient artwork that challenges everything we know about when humans first began creating symbolic art, revealing a mysterious connection between Africa's oldest artists and our modern understanding of human consciousness. What if I told you that in 1969, while NASA was making history landing on the moon, a German archaeologist was making an equally groundbreaking discovery in a remote Namibian cave that would forever change how we understand human creativity? Deep in the Huns Mountains of southwestern Namibia, tucked away in a limestone cliff face, sits a cave that holds secrets spanning over 100,000 years of human occupation. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and how the weather is treating you today. I love connecting with our African folklore archives family from all around the world. The Apollo 11 cave doesn't look like much from the outside. It's just another rocky outcrop in Namibia's harsh desert landscape. But what lies buried beneath its floor has scholars, archaeologists, and art historians completely rethinking everything we know about when humans first developed the capacity for symbolic thought and artistic expression. Most people believe that sophisticated rock art began with the famous cave paintings of Europe, sites like Lascaux in France or Altamira in Spain, dating back around 17,000 years. That's the conventional wisdom that's been taught in universities for decades. But what if that entire timeline was wrong? What if Africa, the cradle of humanity, was also the birthplace of humanity's first artistic expressions, predating European cave art by thousands of years? In this video, I'm going to take you on a journey to one of archaeology's most mysterious discoveries. We'll explore how 7 small stone slabs, each no bigger than an adult hand, completely revolutionized our understanding of ancient African creativity. I'll share the remarkable story of their discovery, the mind-bending age of these artifacts, and the mysterious figures painted on them that continue to puzzle experts today. By the end, you'll understand why these humble stones represent one of the most significant archaeological finds in African history. The proof lies in radiocarbon dating that has been verified multiple times by different laboratories. These aren't just old paintings, they're among the oldest figurative artworks ever discovered anywhere on Earth. Our story begins in July 1969. While the world watched Neil Armstrong take his first steps on the moon, German archaeologist Wolfgang Wendt was excavating a cave in one of the most remote corners of Namibia. The local Nama people had called this place Goachanas for generations. But Wendt, inspired by the historic moon landing he heard about on his shortwave radio, decided to name his discovery Apollo 11 Cave. Wendt wasn't looking for art. He was conducting a systematic archaeological survey of the region, documenting evidence of ancient human habitation. The cave sits against a limestone cliff on the eastern slope of the Nube River, in what is now part of the AIS Richtersveld Trans-Frontier Park. From the outside, nothing suggested that this modest rock shelter would yield one of archaeology's most significant discoveries. As Wendt's team carefully excavated layer after layer of sediment, they uncovered evidence of human occupation spanning incredible periods of time. Tools, animal bones, charcoal from ancient fires, all telling the story of humans who had used this shelter for millennia. But it wasn't until they reached a layer deep within the cave that they found something extraordinary. There, embedded in a Middle Stone Age deposit, was a fragment of grey-brown quartzite with something unusual on its surface. Dark markings that looked deliberately applied. Paint. Ancient paint made from charcoal, ochre, and white pigments, carefully applied to create recognizable shapes. This wasn't accidental staining or natural mineral deposits. This was art. What fascinates me most about this moment is how easy it would have been to miss these fragments entirely. They're small, subtle, and after tens of thousands of years buried in cave sediment, not immediately obvious as artwork. But Wendt recognized their significance immediately. Here's where the story gets even more intriguing. It wasn't until 3 years later, during a follow-up excavation in 1972, that Wendt's team found matching fragments that fit together like pieces of an ancient puzzle. Suddenly, what had been mysterious markings became clear images. Animals. Recognizable creatures painted with skill and intention by artists who lived before the last ice age. Speaking of mysteries, what topic baffles you the most? Drop it in the comments below, and I'll research it for my next video. Your curiosity drives this channel's content. When the radiocarbon dating results came back, they sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. The charcoal found in the same layer as these painted stones dated to between 27,500 and 25,500 years ago. Let me put that in perspective for you. When these anonymous African artists were creating their masterpieces, woolly mammoths still roamed the earth. The last ice age was at its peak. Europe was largely uninhabitable, covered in ice sheets and frozen tundra. Yet here in Africa, sophisticated humans were not just surviving, they were thriving creatively. They were mixing pigments, planning compositions, and creating portable art that they carried with them or deliberately left behind in this sacred space. In total, 7 painted quartzite slabs were recovered from Apollo 11 cave. Each one tells a story, though the complete narrative remains frustratingly elusive. The images show various animals, interpreted by experts as possibly felines, bovids, or other creatures that roamed the African landscape tens of thousands of years ago. But here's what makes these paintings truly mysterious. Some of the figures appear to be Therianthropic, meaning they combine human and animal characteristics. One of the most famous stones shows what appears to be a creature with both human and animal features. Is this evidence of ancient spiritual beliefs? Shamanic practices? Creation myths passed down through generations? We simply don't know, and that's what makes these artifacts so compelling. The technical skill demonstrated in these paintings is remarkable. The artists understood how to prepare pigments from different materials. Charcoal provided black lines and shading. Ochre, that red iron oxide mineral that African artists have used for millennia, created warm earth tones. White pigments, possibly from kaolin clay or ground minerals, added highlights and contrast. These weren't crude scratches or simple marks. These were deliberate artistic choices made by people with developed aesthetic sensibilities. They understood composition, proportion, and symbolic representation. In other words, they thought like modern humans because they were modern humans. But here's what really challenges our assumptions about ancient Africa and human development. The Apollo 11 stones represent portable art. Unlike cave paintings that were fixed to walls, these were objects that could be carried, shared, traded, or ceremonially deposited. This suggests a level of cultural sophistication that many scholars didn't associate with African societies of this time period. The implications are staggering. If humans in southern Africa were creating sophisticated symbolic art 27,000 years ago, what does that tell us about their language capabilities, their social structures, their spiritual beliefs? Symbolic thinking and artistic expression are considered hallmarks of behaviorally modern humans. The Apollo 11 stones push back the timeline for these capabilities in Africa by thousands of years. Now, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe to support this channel. Your subscription means the world to me, as African Folklore Archives is still growing, and every subscriber helps us reach more people who are hungry for authentic African stories and history. There's another layer to this mystery that often gets overlooked. The cave wasn't just used once. Archaeological evidence shows continuous human occupation spanning over 100,000 years. Generation after generation of people used this shelter, left their mark, told their stories within its walls. The painted stones were found in just one layer, representing just one moment in this vast timeline of human habitation. What stories did earlier occupants tell? What art did they create that hasn't survived? What cultural traditions were passed down through thousands of generations before culminating in the artistic achievements we see in the Apollo 11 stones? The location itself adds another element of mystery. Why this cave? Why this particular spot in the vast Namibian landscape? The cave sits along what would have been an ancient travel route, near water sources that were crucial for survival in this arid region. Perhaps it was a gathering place, a sacred site where different groups came together to trade, share stories, and participate in ceremonies. The portable nature of the art supports this theory. If different groups were meeting at Apollo 11 cave, the painted stones could have been gifts, ceremonial objects, or teaching tools used to pass down important cultural information. Imagine the stories these objects could tell if they could speak. Here's what makes the Apollo 11 discovery even more significant in the broader context of African history. For too long, narratives about human development and cultural achievement have centered Europe and Asia, with Africa portrayed as a late adopter of sophisticated behaviors. The Apollo 11 stones completely flip that script. Africa wasn't just the birthplace of anatomically modern humans, it was also the birthplace of behaviorally modern humans. The capacity for symbolic thought, artistic expression, and cultural transmission through art all have their deepest roots in African soil. Today, the Apollo 11 stones are housed in the National Museum of Namibia in Windhoek, where they continue to inspire researchers and visitors from around the world. But their discovery raised as many questions as it answered. Recent technological advances have allowed scientists to analyze the pigments in greater detail, confirming their ancient origins and revealing new information about how they were created. Advanced imaging techniques have revealed details invisible to the naked eye, including possible layers of paint that suggest the stones were decorated, used, and then decorated again over time. This points to objects that had ongoing cultural significance, not just one-time artistic expressions. The mystery deepens when we consider what we haven't found. If sophisticated artists were creating portable art 27,000 years ago, where are the other examples? Were the Apollo 11 stones unique, or do they represent a broader tradition of African art that has been lost to time? The harsh conditions of the African environment, while preserving these particular stones through fortunate circumstances, have likely destroyed countless other examples of ancient artistic expression. Climate change, erosion, and the simple passage of time have erased most traces of ancient African cultures. What survived at Apollo 11 cave survived because of a perfect storm of preservation conditions. The dry climate, the protective cave environment, and the specific geological composition of the quartzite stones themselves. This brings us to a sobering realization. The Apollo 11 stones might represent just the tiniest glimpse into a vast, sophisticated artistic tradition that flourished in ancient Africa. We're seeing the tip of an iceberg, with the vast majority of African artistic achievement hidden beneath the surface of time. Recent discoveries across Africa continue to push back the timeline for human symbolic behavior. Engraved ochre from Blombo's cave in South Africa dates to 70,000 years ago. Shell beads from North Africa show evidence of personal ornamentation going back 120,000 years. Each discovery reinforces the picture of Africa as the crucible of human cultural development. But the Apollo 11 stones remain unique in their combination of age, artistic sophistication, and portable nature. They represent a specific moment when ancient African artists chose to create lasting images, using materials and techniques that would preserve their work for modern eyes to discover and wonder at. What strikes me most about these ancient artists is their humanity. Despite the vast gulf of time that separates us, their artistic impulses feel familiar. They wanted to capture the world around them, to create something beautiful and meaningful, to leave a mark that would outlast their own lives. In that sense, they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Comment below and let me know which part of this story intrigued you the most. Was it the incredible age of the artwork? The mystery of the Therianthropic figures? The fact that Africa was producing sophisticated art while Europe was covered in ice? Or something else entirely? Your thoughts and insights make these stories come alive. The Apollo 11 cave discovery forces us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about human development, African history, and the origins of artistic expression. It reminds us that Africa has always been at the forefront of human achievement, from our earliest ancestors to the sophisticated artists who painted these mysterious stones 27,000 years ago. These 7 small quartzite slabs, no bigger than adult hands, carry the weight of rewritten history. They whisper stories of ancient African creativity, spiritual beliefs, and cultural sophistication that challenges everything we thought we knew about our past. They connect us to artists whose names we'll never know but whose legacy lives on in every brushstroke, every carefully mixed pigment, every deliberate artistic choice. The Apollo 11 stones prove that the human drive to create, to express, to leave a lasting mark on the world, is as old as humanity itself. And it all began here, in Africa, in a modest cave overlooking the Nube River, where ancient artists working by firelight created masterpieces that would survive ice ages, climate changes, and the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Their art endures. Their mystery remains. And their story reminds us that Africa has always been home to humanity's greatest achievements, including the very first expressions of the artistic spirit that defines us as human beings. The Apollo 11 cave stones aren't just ancient artifacts. Imagination and the desire to create beauty have been part of the African story from the very beginning. In our next exploration, we'll uncover more hidden treasures from Africa's ancient past. Until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and keep celebrating the incredible legacy of our ancestors who painted by firelight in a Namibian cave 27,000 years ago.